Business. Business has to encompass not just financial commodity and service transactions. It has also to include welfare, justice, empowerment, environmental and other issues too. Every week, Business Matters will delve into aspects of business that impact our lives. We will seek out extraordinary and ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. Facilitators, educators, and entrepreneurs will be invited to inspire and enlighten our listeners. Join Anwar Mullah for an interactive show and find out what really matters in business.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Anwar Mullah is currently not available, so I'm going to be taking his spot just to interview this for this week. And I'd like to say welcome to Business Matters in partnership with the Minara Chamber of Commerce. Tonight we're joined by a woman who has built a business out of turning chaos into clarity. Neesa Bux is the founder of Chaos to Clarity Consulting, where she helps companies make sense of their sales operation and data so they can make smarter decisions and unlock real performance. She's passionate about demystifying numbers, understanding human behavior in teams, and showing leaders what's really happening inside their business. Neesa, it's great to have you on the show.
Jazakallah Naim, it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so I'm just going to kick off with some light-hearted questions, because obviously our listeners don't understand exactly what Chaos to Clarity is. So when someone asks you, what do you do? How do you explain Chaos to Clarity Consulting?
So, Naim, I focus on helping businesses make sense of their numbers. I find that companies either lack reporting or they have reports and spreadsheets, but they still don't know why sales drop or where money is being lost. I analyze their data and turn it into clear actions so leaders know exactly what to fix and, well, basically, instead of holding another meeting about it, hey.
Yeah, that's right. And explain to me, how is this different from, because currently we have a lot of BI tools available to us where if I want to find an exception or multiple exceptions or variances, how is your tool different, or what you're doing different to a tool that can analyze data for us?
So it's not about the tool, Naim. The tool is something I use to build a vision for myself. This is about the insight that comes out of the data that's presented. So I use Excel. However, I read data and I don't specifically need Excel in order to read data. So I work with companies who have their own in-house systems, and I am able to read the data from there.
So it's more of a skill to be able to interpret what the data is telling you.
Correct.
Okay, so it's I kind of understand where you're going with this.
Okay.
And tell me now, what problem were you seeing in South African businesses that pushed you into this, to basically start your own consulting practice in Chaos to Clarity Consulting?
I think it's a lot about how leaders misunderstand performance data. I've come from an insurance background, and I looked at the insurance sector, call center industry as a whole, and I identified common issues, and visibility has always been an issue. I believe that if you cannot see where you are going, you're not going anywhere. I mean, obviously. So, yeah.
And can you give me one or two examples of, so you mentioned in the call centers where you could see something that was happening, but they couldn't interpret that data the way you could interpret it. Can you give us one or two examples of how that would work?
Sure. So I'm going to use a very common example, and I think many people will identify with this, right? Let's look at when your top performers drop. They dip in performance. Okay. So I have on numerous occasions deep dived into performance of solid teams. However, this specific team, their results dipped, and naturally, leadership assumed it was a morale issue and pushed on motivation. Well, the data told a different story because this specific team was working long hours over a sustained period of time. This does not speak to disengagement. Performance dipped because they were exhausted, and I got this information from the data. No amount of motivation is going to fix exhaustion.
So you found that the leaders misinterpreted what the problem was.
So the data was not telling a story to them. They just assumed this is a top performer. They show up every day. They are always stable. They're stable. But so leaders just assume, looking at data, they cannot identify a specific pattern. Looking at the data, they were able to tell, okay, these guys have been working from, for example, 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. recurringly. And data shows you that information, which is how
once you found that being the trend, that basically they may have been disengaged or demotivated because of this type of long hours. What was then the solution that you, because obviously managers and management, they might disagree with you in terms of what your criticism or what your analysis is versus what the real truth is. So
Yes.
how do you then break it to them that this is the problem?
Look, when you have facts and figures in front of you, you really don't have a challenge with that. Well, I don't experience a challenge when the figures are showing you factually. This is what the problem is. You cannot identify any other issue, but if your guys are on the verge of burnout, obviously their performance is going to dip and they need to take some time off very urgently.
So you just prescribed time off to them.
Yeah, if somebody is battling exhaustion and burnout, getting yourself away from what it is that's causing the issue is the best solution. Take a breather, and when you do return, you'll come back that much stronger.
And post that, so pre and post, obviously you saw sales or whatever metric they were tracking. It might have been calls or sales numbers or whatever they were tracking. Pre, there was these top performers were exceeding expectation, whatever. Then the exhaustion happened, performance dipped. And did you go back and tie numbers after these guys took a break to see whether that was the problem?
Absolutely. And that is why I used this specific example, because we got an entire picture and we solved the issue. It was absolutely brilliant, I might add. I mean, I'm sorry for the guys that were burnt out, but it was really amazing to see how they just a little bit of a breather just rejuvenated the team.
Okay, that's quite interesting. And except for that, have you done any other work? Can you give us maybe another example of where there was a direct correlation of something, but maybe the managers or founders or executives couldn't see this as being a problem, but actually it was misdiagnosed by them and you had to come through and diagnose it? Is there another example that you can maybe tell us about?
Yes, okay. So I'm going to use another example that comes from collections. So there was a specific team, and on paper, the team was busy, right? But that busyness did not translate into cash flow. So when we analyzed the data, we found that the team lacked visibility and insight into a key collections metric. They did not know how they were performing, and they did not know how to improve on that specific metric. So when they started tracking this metric, the team knew exactly where to focus. The process improved and revenue followed. I mean, in this specific example, what we did here was turned effort into income. And the data told us the story, or the lack of data helped us to get data in place, which drove the performance.
So in this instance, there was no data to track where the guys were performing in terms of whether they were where they were meant to collect to versus where they were actually collecting to. And once they actually bridged that gap, then they kind of understood where they were versus where they needed to be.
Absolutely. A specific gap in the process just needed a tweak. And once that was tweaked, the metric was clearly visible. Improvement followed. Collections
Yeah,
followed.
that's collections followed, and obviously cash flow
Yeah,
improved.
absolutely.
And tell us now. So you mentioned that you often work with with sales operations and data. What do you see as the most common mistakes that founders or managers are making to interpret their numbers or misinterpreting their numbers?
So Naeem, leaders often treat performance data as a way to track people, not to direct action. But if data doesn't lead to a specific decision or a change in behavior, it is not performance data. That's just information. What do you do with that?
Hmm. So it's kind of translating data to kind of tell you a story as to exactly what's happening, but the right version of the truth.
Absolutely. And when you have that in front of you, you either going to take that information and do nothing with it, or you're going to take that information and you are going to use that to upskill your team and grow. That's the point ultimately. Business growth.
That's interesting. Because we often hear that, or many leaders will say that they are data driven, but they still act on gut feelings or what they believe to be the truth. So, how do you come in and explain to these leaders that what they're doing is actually they're not actually leading with data or with numbers, but so how do you break it down to them that what they're actually doing is incorrect?
So, Naeem, with business leaders, it's a matter of having an open and honest conversation. And that's exactly what I do. I do offer teams upskilling and training, etc. And that's positioned to the business leader. The option is there. But in order, let's just say this, when a person comes through to ask me for help, they are going to take it. They do take it. I'm just going to tell you that because, I mean, it's a big step to come forward and say, you know what, I'm not too sure. It is a big step, and I fully understand that. Owning that can only mean that you are very, very interested and serious about making a change.
And in terms of industries that you've worked with, so you mentioned the call center industry, you mentioned like maybe a collection type of businesses. What other businesses have you worked with?
So, actually, not debt collection, life insurance.
Life
I
insurance.
specialize in insurance, correct?
Okay, what other industries have you worked with?
I've been in financial services my entire career.
Okay, so it's mostly tailored towards the financial services sector.
That's my actual work, yes. I mean, my career
Okay.
history, sorry.
Okay. And in terms of what have you learned about human behavior in these, be it call centers or sales teams, that executives are currently overlooking? What do you think that they're missing? So you mentioned that they can't interpret the data, but I mean, if they
Yes,
have an accountant or something who's working in the team that can
right.
perhaps interpret the data for them, what else could they be overlooking?
So the next layer is leadership, right? Or
Okay.
the leadership that's running your team. Um, when an issue arises, there's various avenues that you're going to need to look at. So when I do a deep dive, I'm looking at a very big picture in order to tell the story. But to answer your question, the next layer would be leadership, the guys that are running the actual teams.
And explain what so if they saying, no, we have this guy, this is the story he's telling us, this is the story you telling us, what's the next step then?
I know my story. That guy knows his story. I'm not going to change my story because I believe in it a lot. I've seen the
and
difference. So, I
and
mean, I'm
and,
happy
and,
to
and
work with somebody.
work with them.
Yes,
and and, and
absolutely.
and and generally, what period of time would all of these processes take on
Look,
average?
look, it depends on the offering, Naeem, because if somebody needs information and basic information, they need insight. That can take between 2 to 4 days. But if there's a whole lot more information that's required and various aspects in a business that needs fixing, so to speak, then that could potentially take 5 to 7 days. Obviously, with
Okay,
interaction between the business and myself.
So it's quite a quick turnaround then. So plus
Yes.
minus a week.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this thing entails.
Correct.
And in terms of for a small or medium-sized business that's listening today, what is the first simple data habit that you think that they should put into place?
Your income and expenses. Income, expenses, and profit. That needs to be visible. And I find very often that SMEs, because they are passionate about their actual skill, I mean, not all SME, not everybody would be interested in reporting, right? In all fairness. So they don't have that visibility and they're flying blind. People wonder, where's my money? I know I'm busy, I'm doing a lot, but I don't know where it's going to. And that's a common issue I find with SMEs. So at least have your basics in place that make it easy for you to track and report on income, expenses, profit.
So most of these SMEs don't even have like a simple accounting package available to them, like a Sage or just to kind
No,
of track where they're going. So they're kind
no,
of flying blind.
flying blind. And I mean, I understand it. Again, it's people behavior. You're going to do what you love doing, but it's not helping you get to where you need to go. So a little bit more effort and help is required.
And do you find that these SMEs, the reason they fly blind is just a lack of knowledge, or what's the gap? How can we help these SMEs to kind of get the help they need? As Minara Chamber of Commerce, we try to network with individuals, try and get them help. How can we as a chamber perhaps help them to get the help that they need?
I think a little bit of perhaps a training session to get them to understand why, firstly, you are tracking and reporting, how to do it, and what you can do with that data going forward. How that tracking and reporting can move your business forward.
Yeah, because it's I mean that's a big problem. I mean literacy, numeracy in terms of those specific metrics that you mentioned, income, expenses, profit. I mean it's critical to running a business so that you know at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day you make your income. Cash flow is also important, and I sometimes feel, how can we bridge the gap in terms of knowledge? How can we empower especially SMEs? How can we
Yes.
empower them to get these skills so that they know where they're going and that they can actually build on it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem we see a lot of, and it's interesting to get your view on it.
And I am seeing a lot of it as well, Naim. And I mean, with my clients, we joke about it and all of that. But by the time people come to me, I can actually see that they are at a point of desperation. SMEs are at a point of desperation. And yeah, if people can get to that space a little quicker, they might save themselves a lot of pain.
And in terms of the South African business landscape that you kind of working in right now, what trends are you most excited about?
I can tell you what I've been working on. I have been researching and playing around a lot with AI and how AI can be used with data and analysis. So that's something that's been on my mind a lot because, I mean, we need to be a little bit curious, I would say.
And
And
obviously AI is like the new buzzword. So everyone is like, I'll Claude this, or I'll Perplexity that, or I'm gonna put this into Chat GPT and it's gonna give me an answer and I can write my emails, etc., etc. So explain to me or dumb it down for me.
so I'm going.
How do you use it?
Okay.
How would in this space? So for instance, we find maybe in the call center scenario, I don't know, we have an Excel or we have a document that's telling us these were historically your top top performers, now they're your lower performers. I plug that in, but it's not going to tell me that the fact that they're underperforming is because there's overexertion and exhaustion.
Yes.
So if I plug this into AI, it's going to give me the wrong answer.
Yes, I agree.
Explain to me how you using AI, something that maybe we're missing, and how can we use it better?
So no, you are not missing anything, and I wouldn't say that I use AI for reporting. I've tested it. Now, AI is a powerful tool for speeding up reporting and spotting early trends with very simple data, right? But with complex business data, Naim, there is a risk of shallow insight, as you mentioned, and poor data integrity. AI tells you we make mistakes. Okay, so AI can highlight trends, but judgment still needs a human. The strongest insights come from AI working with human judgment and experience. That's what I find exciting, but I suppose a lot more research needs to go into it.
Yeah. So it's not a.
I wouldn't bank on it. No.
It's not going to solve our problems immediately.
No, not yet.
And for a small business or a medium-sized business, how can they best use AI? You would say, how could they, in which avenues could they best use it?
Look, a small business can have a spreadsheet or can have reports or little mini reports even, and they can take that information, the data on their reports, and plug it into ChatGPT, and they will get responses and insights. So that will be beneficial to them. But obviously, as the complexity increases, then your responses or answers from ChatGPT should be questioned. But for basic reporting and insights, I think it looks promising.
So if I wanted to just put a P&L in kind of ChatGPT to get an understanding of where my business is heading, maybe it'll give me some sort of a understanding into the health of my business. Maybe it can drive that.
Yeah, like sort of, yes.
And in terms of things that you are most worried about in the landscape that you're working in, what would worry you?
People breaking reports. That is the biggest challenge, and I say this because
explain that to me. People breaking reports.
It's actually a very good one and a very common one. So even when I was working at a company, and I'm seeing it now in my own business, I don't know what people do exactly, but I mean, everybody wants to see information, and you may not know how to use it properly, and click on something that changes everything. So that has always been a huge challenge in my life. And the upskilling, yes, upskilling is always the answer, but there's only so much another person wants to upskill themselves on Excel. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Breaking is a lot easier, and let's call Neesa.
So it's a standard report, but the wrong people trying to interfere with that report creates this issue of where the report is breaking and it's giving you the wrong type of information.
Yes, we would say the curious people.
The curious people. Okay, that's a nice, kind way of putting it. And continuing with this AI discussion, because I find it quite fascinating. What kind of roles do you think AI will make obsolete maybe in the next 5 to 10 years?
Look, Naim, that is something I don't even want to think about. And I'll tell you why. It's because all I needed to do was put in a little bit of data onto AI and see them change my numbers. So I'm going to tell you, see
the AI changing the numbers.
Yes.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. That's data integrity that's questioned there. So yeah, I would prefer not to speak too much on that. There's a lot
Yeah,
that
because
can go
there's
wrong at
obviously
this point.
there's so much of anxiousness and angst around AI, and the fact that it could in the next 5 to 10 years. It's like the horse and cart. You had it one day, then a car came, and suddenly we're in the industrial revolution, and there's no horse and cart, and now there's motor vehicles. So one finds it interesting, especially with the speed of technology. And like everyone's worried about the kids. What are the kids going to be studying? Because one year it was software development and coding, and now the AI can kind of do the coding for you, so you don't need to know Python anymore. Because you can put what you want, and theoretically the AI will give you the code that's applicable. So I think it's quite an interesting question to ask ourselves in terms of where are we going with this, and where is the world going to be in the next 5 years. And I think that's kind of an interesting kind of world that we're going to be living in.
It's very interesting, I agree, but I must tell you that with the research that I've been doing around, I am not very excited at this point about what that world would look like. I think there's a lot of research and actually a lot of work that needs to go into AI currently before we get to that space where people can say, okay, my job is going to be obsolete. Because again, too many question marks around what actually comes out after you put something
So
in.
what it throws, so you put something in, it throws out something that's inaccurate.
Yes.
Interesting. And in terms of new roles, maybe, where do you think there could be jobs in and around the whole AI market? Do you think it's going to create new jobs, or do you think where do you think we're going with that?
I'm not I don't think we're going to create new jobs with AI. I don't think that's the purpose of it. I think the people and businesses are using it to actually cut costs. I mean,
Exactly.
if you're going to pay for a subscription, and you're going to get a lot of information that somebody else could tell you. But again, it's going to depend on the type of business that you have and whether you are willing to take that risk.
And do you not see jobs like plumbers and electricians and basically things that need hands, as opposed to maybe lawyers who go through a ton of information, and the AI can throw the ton of information, like that might become obsolete. But jobs that where you actually need to use your tactile hands, like these artisans, do you not see lots of potential for those versus jobs where it's just data, and those tools can throw out the data to you? But these jobs where you actually need physical labor,
Technical skills.
technical skills.
Yes, technical skills. I mean, that's solid, and no AI is going to replace that, right? Again, though, Naim, I'm going to say when it comes to AI and jobs as such, human judgment at this point is still required. And I don't know what the future of AI will look like as such, and I'm not too certain what the plans are for it. But from my experience, understanding and knowledge currently, human judgment is not replaceable.
So you still believe that nothing can replace the final judgment that a human can make?
Yes. And that judgment comes from experience, right?
100%. I hear exactly what you're saying.
So
And,
I
and
think AI is very general and generic. The responses are very general and broad. So yeah, I don't think and I know you can streamline it and whatever, but I've played around with it a lot, and it's just not something that I'm comfortable that's going to be the way of the future
with,
just yet. Yeah.
I hear you. And in terms of your own business, so Chaos to Clarity, where do you think you're going to be maybe 5 to 10 years from now? What problems do you think do you think with AI, and maybe the AI tools become better, in a few years' time with all of these new iterations of these tools coming out. So as the new iterations come out, they're probably gonna fix a lot of the problems. Where do
Yes.
you think you'll still be relevant in the next 5 to 10 years in the South African landscape?
Absolutely, because my insights are what counts, and ChatGPT is not going to throw out what this level of experience has. People, processes are my passion, right? And since so much my work revolves around human behavior, no AI is going to answer that. That comes purely from being on the field or on the ground or amongst people constantly.
And where do you see your business in 5 to 10 years' time?
Naim, we're not going to wait 5 to 10 years. We are looking at scaling way before then. So I have expansion plans. And I'm hoping we can chat about that in our next interview.
Definitely, I look forward to it. And in terms of, I asked you what do most South African leaders maybe miss, but there's certain numbers that maybe most leaders obsess over. So you mentioned P&L, you mentioned income, expense, you mentioned cash flow. What do you think most leaders obsess over? And it could be an overrated thing. They obsess over it, but it's actually overrated.
So I think there's something that's called activity. To simplify that sort of busyness. Leaders chase activity. But activity doesn't give you all the answers. I can be busy the entire day, but what am I actually doing? So the idea is to focus on effectiveness, not chase activity. And I see it a lot as well. People or businesses chase activity. And like, let's say, for example, if we are looking at a call center industry, how many calls are being made? But what you should actually be looking at is how many leads is this person going, and how many, and based off that, how many they are actually either closing or not closing as a sale. Does that make sense?
I hear you. So they're chasing the wrong metric.
Very often, and I see that a lot as well.
Interesting. And tell me, in terms of leadership, is there anything that your clients might have taught you about leadership that maybe you want to share?
You know what? I actually learn a lot from clients, but there's one specific leadership, and this was actually something I was going to volunteer at towards the end. But Naim, I want to tell you that when it comes to leadership, a business leader once taught me to look at the cost of my time. And it was one of the most precious lessons I've ever learned. So I can tell you that once you know the cost of your time or the time your team uses, basically your output per hour, priorities change. And when I say priorities change, I mean, it's things that you work on, or what you work on, when you work on it, and who you choose to work with. So it was actually a brilliant lesson that I think everybody should learn.
So basically that time is valuable.
Your look at your rate, Naim. You spend 5 hours today doing a specific task, right? What was the cost? If you look at your salary, break that down in terms of those hours.
Into time.
How much? Yes. So it's very important that a leader knows their output per hour or their rate per hour, what they actually do per hour.
I hear exactly what you're saying.
It was just a brilliant, life-changing lesson for me.
And is there something that you think that in your company that maybe more South African businesses should copy, like something that you might be doing that people are actually missing the boat on? Is there any? Can you give me any examples of that?
Very detailed tracking and reporting, I can tell you that. So that's the gap that I mostly see, Naim. I'm a fairly new company. I'm 6 months old. So tracking and reporting is what I do, and that's what the gap is out there in the industry that I'm seeing, and especially with SMEs and other bigger businesses as well.
And you mentioned that people can't necessarily do what you do in terms of analysis. What helped you to get that? Like, is it something innate in you, or is it something that you studied, or how do you think businesses can enable themselves to kind of get some of the tools that you have to kind of understand their businesses better to make the right solutions?
So it's a little bit of both. It's I studied social sciences, and that gave me a strong foundation in behavior, learning, and decision making. Right. But I must tell you, it is an innate quality. I'm just very observant, and I am very attuned to people. So basically, it's like an innate skill where you walk in and you are able to read a room. It's something like that.
And the ability to take in vast amount of data and interpret that data.
What about it?
How is there something that's innate to you, or is that a skill do you think people can learn?
I learned that. I learned how to, absolutely learned how to structure data to paint a picture for me. So it's very much a skill that can be learned.
Yeah, I always find that interesting, whether it's like an innate skill or it's something that can be learned and taught. And I think most things can actually be taught over time.
And yes, and especially if you look at a skill that revolves around insights or data analysis, it has to be firstly something that you love and enjoy doing, because it can become quite miserable for people. But if you love and enjoy what you're doing, I'm going to tell you, can you go back to your question? I want to link it back to your question, and it just flew out of my head.
Now, I said, a lot of what you're saying, the skills that you have, I sometimes wonder, is it something that's innate to you, that you have that specific skill, or can that skill be trained and learned?
Yes.
And often I see that we believe that skill is actually innate in the person, that skill, but actually it's something that can be learned over time with study, with life experience, etc., etc., etc.
So, okay, thank you for that. So yes, it can be learned, because if you look at it, Naim, there's something that's called emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence teaches you self-awareness and awareness of your surroundings as well. So it's something that can be learned and developed over time. I suppose it was just something I probably enjoyed doing from a young child, observing and trying to understand. So when I went through a whole emotional intelligence training and that whole entire process of developing myself, it was a little easier for me because I could understand from a personal innate level. However, very doable. You can learn it.
And my other question is, if there's a business out there that's listening to this, that it's maybe drowning in data and starving for some of your insight, where do you think they should start tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.?
Sorry, where do I think they should start?
So if there's a business that feels that they're drowning in this data, like they might have the data, but they don't have this insight that you might have, where should they start tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock trying to look for the answers?
They should actually just go onto LinkedIn and get my details and reach out to me, and I will be happy to help.
And you must give us those details so we can share those details. Because
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of businesses that might have the data and might have, as you mentioned about this call center industry, that they're tracking a certain metric or a KPI, but that KPI is actually the wrong metric. It's not earning them any return. The
Yes,
actual
it's just a
return is measuring
guideline.
the other. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a
Uh,
guideline.
yeah, and there might be a lot of businesses like that starving to actually interpret this data, or starving to track the right KPI or the right metric. So you must give us those details so we can definitely share it.
Absolutely. Happy to do so.
What's my next question? And this is a fun one. How do you handle it when a leadership team brings you in, but their people on the ground are resistant in terms of what you are trying to propose?
So that's very common, and that is going to
Okay.
happen. So when it comes to the team's behavior around any change, there has to be some change management that goes out before. So like a leader would not be able to walk into a team tomorrow morning and say, hey, we're working with Neesa and this is what we saw, and now you guys need to work on this. There's a whole change management process, and obviously any change is led by a leader's own behavior.
Can you say that again?
Yeah. So any changes are led by how a leader behaves. So if I'm going to walk in tomorrow morning and we know that there's change coming, I need to have a plan around how we are going to manage this change, how we are going to communicate with the team, and how we are going to train it. So I think that's a skill that's very, people have that skill in my industry. They are able and strong and solid enough to do so. But again, if help is needed, let's call Neesa.
Okay. So the show is going to end in 2 minutes' time. If you could round up and tell us maybe a mini sales pitch. How can we reach you, contact you? Can you give us your handles, your LinkedIn, all of those things? Or is it all just Neesa Bux? So how can we find you?
So you're going to find me on Facebook. You're going to find me on LinkedIn. You're going to find me all over social media. I go under Neesa Bux Ramcharan.
Yes.
So
we can just put that into Google. We can just basically put that into Google.
You can put it into Google. You can get all my details.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Neesa. It's been a real pleasure hosting you, and I look to doing it soon. But hopefully then I can bring you some examples from AI that the AI interpreted it wrong. I can give it to you and you can give me the right answer.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I think we'll have a lot of fun with that one, Naim.
Okay. So just from a Minara point of view, I just want to, there's a seminar on strategy planning for business growth. So you gain practical insights, learn from industry experts and like-minded professionals. The date is Tuesday, the 20th of January, 2026. The venue is the Minara Conference Center, 32 West Riding Row, GMH Center in Sherwood. And the time would be 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It would be awesome if people can join us for this seminar on business growth and strategy. Neesa, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you. And thank you to Minara and Radio Al Ansar for hosting us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam, Naim. Jazakallah.
Allahumma